Do you have to speak Norwegian to live in Norway? At first glance, we might think not necessarily. English is really common in Norway. Norway ranks number 5 in the EF Proficiency Index. That's a ranking that measures how well people speak English. And the result was that almost 90% of the population in Norway can speak at least some English. And that's because Norwegians have traditionally had close ties to Britain, because the films are not dubbed, so people are used to seeing films in English and the television. And Norway also has an education system that relies heavily on English because it's a small country, it is very international, so it's quite normal for everybody to speak English. It even happened to me that I went to a cafe or restaurant in Oslo and I ordered in Norwegian, and the waiter told me, "Oh, sorry, I don't understand Norwegian very well, could you please order in English?" So even that is common. So you might think, well, if even I can get a job not speaking Norwegian, then why would I even bother to learn Norwegian at all? But if you look a little bit closer, it's not that simple, and there are actually very good reasons to learn Norwegian, even if you could get a job, for example, in the IT industry or even sometimes in the service industry, speaking only English. Firstly, if you don't speak Norwegian, then the choice of jobs is just very limited. So even though there are some industries that rely heavily on English, it is still usually necessary to understand at least some Norwegian if you want to work for a Norwegian company. I mentioned this example with the waiters in the cafes. These things happen when there is really a shortage of labor, but as soon as there's the smallest economic crisis and there are two applicants for the same job, one speaks Norwegian, the other one speaks English, then you will not have a chance if you don't speak at least some Norwegian. And the same applies even if you want to have a job in Norway that does not require Norwegian at all. Norwegian employers will still prefer to hire you if you speak Norwegian. The reason for this is that you are perceived as being somebody who is a bit more serious, who wants to integrate in the society, who wants to have contact with the other employees, who wants to stay maybe a little bit longer, who doesn't just go through the recruitment process that might take very long, and then after a couple of months decides that the weather is too cold and goes to live in another country. And even from a cultural perspective, it's really important. People want to see that you can fit into the team, that you can fit into the work group, and that you can maybe have small talk with customers. So these things are more important than you might think, even if officially the job ad says that the job is entirely in Norwegian. I have an interview on this channel with Karin Ellis, who advises people who are looking for a job in Norway, and she talks a lot about this. Check out the video if this is interesting for you. But let's not just talk about jobs. Let's also look at other aspects of life in Norway. You don't want to only work in Norway, right? You want to have friends. You want to go and pursue your hobbies. You want to chit-chat with the neighbors. And these are all things, if you don't speak Norwegian, then this gets really hard. Of course, you will be invited to parties, and people will, in the one-on-one talk with you, obviously switch to English when it's necessary. But in general, people are just going to continue the conversation in Norwegian. You will always be the outsider who depends on other people to help you. So is that a position that you want to be in? To be honest, I cannot imagine this. So whenever I am in a country, even just as a tourist, and I don't understand the language, I get a little bit nervous. I don't like it. I see the newspapers. I have no clue what people are talking about. I see the signs in the shop. I don't understand them. I don't know what people are laughing about. I want to know the local culture. So for all of these aspects, the Norwegian language is super important. So if you want to learn Norwegian, check out my channel. There's a lot of resources there. I've also created a story-based Norwegian course, so it's a bit more fun for you to learn Norwegian than just work with a boring app or with random dialogues. Let me know what are your thoughts about living in Norway without Norwegian in the comments. And if you find this video interesting, please share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel.